The galaxy laughed the day Earth revealed its first interstellar warship. Across the council chambers of 1,000 worlds, diplomats and admirals sneered at the grainy footage of the Leviathan, humanity's pride. Compared to the sleek cruisers of the Trillion Union or the needle-like dreadnoughts of the Zelvar Armada, Earth's ship looked ancient, clumsy, and hopelessly slow. Its engines glowed with a dim, sluggish pulse, pushing the vessel at what aliens joked was walking speed. Its weapons, thick-barreled cannons and missile bays, seemed like relics dragged from a museum of primitive war. The humans have built a coffin for themselves, one alien senator chuckled to his peers. A flying brick, another sneered. Barely able to move, even less to fight. The laughter rippled across star systems. To the galaxy, Earth was late to the great game of interstellar power, and their first step was laughably unworthy. But Earth knew something the galaxy did not. The Leviathan had not been built to chase. It had not been built to outmaneuver, to dance between lasers like a predator. No, humanity had crafted it with a single principle in mind: endure, and strike with force no one could survive. The first sparks of war came from the Velari, a proud reptilian empire whose fleets thrived on speed and precision. Their admirals scoffed at Earth's demands for independence in trade routes. When negotiations failed, they seized an opportunity to make an example. "Crush their relic," hissed Supreme Admiral Kravak. "Let all species see the weakness of these mammals." The Velari fleet descended on Sol with 30 ships. Fast, frigates, carrier groups, and cruisers that cut through the void like arrows. Their weapons blazed with confidence. Earth's orbital defenses fell in the first hours, shredded by energy lances. Human colonies on Mars and Europa screamed for aid as bombardments tore through their fragile domes. And then the Leviathan stirred. It emerged from the dark side of the moon like a rising beast, its silhouette blotting out the stars. Its movements were agonizingly slow, a crawl compared to the Velari's sleek maneuvers. Alien commanders laughed over, opened channels, broadcasting taunts across the system. Humanity hides behind an ancient shell. Your turtle moves. Shall we wait a century for it to fight? But inside the Leviathan, the mood was anything but slow. Captain Elias Rowan stood on the command deck, jaw clenched, eyes fixed on the tactical screens. Around him, human officers worked in tense silence. Every vibration of enemy fire echoed through the colossal hull. But the ship held. Layer upon layer of reinforced plating, alloys mixed with Earth's most secret engineering, absorbed the onslaught. "Captain," the weapons officer murmured, voice trembling. "Shields holding at 70%. Hull integrity strong. They can't crack us." Rowan's lips curved into the faintest of grim smiles. "Good," he said quietly. "They were never meant to." For hours, the Leviathan endured. Missiles rained. Plasma bolts carved at its flanks. Fighters swarmed like insects, their shots sparking harmlessly against its armor. The Velari laughed louder, jeering as the slow coffin refused to even return fire. Inside, the crew waited. The ship's heart, the true reason for its design, was charging. Deep within its armored belly lay the Titan Lance, a weapon not of speed but of finality. It drew energy like a black hole consumes light, requiring patience, requiring time. Humanity had gambled everything on it. One strike, one chance, and when it was ready, the galaxy would fall silent. At last, the weapons officer turned, eyes wide. "Captain, the lance is primed." The bridge fell into breathless stillness. Every officer felt it, the weight of history pressing down upon them. This was not merely a battle. It was Earth's answer to centuries of mockery, of dismissal, of being called weak, primitive, backward. Captain Rowan rose from his chair. His voice was steady, yet carried the iron of centuries of human defiance. "Target the flagship." Across the void, Admiral Kravak sat smug in his command chair, watching the human relic drift closer. "Pathetic," he hissed. "End this farce." His fleet spread in formation, weapons primed for the final strike. They expected one last feeble defense. What they did not expect was silence. The Leviathan's engines dimmed. Its cannons remained cold, and then a light bloomed from its core, a brilliance so fierce that even sensors scrambled. Space itself seemed to tremble. The Titan lance fired. The beam tore through the void like the fist of a god. A spear of raw, condensed energy, wider than cities, stretched across thousands of kilometers in an instant. It struck the Velari flagship first, shattering its shields as if they were paper, splitting its hull into molten fragments. The Admiral's final hiss of disbelief was swallowed in fire. The beam did not stop. It carved through two cruisers behind, ripping them apart as though they were fragile toys. Fighters disintegrated, caught in the shock wave of unleashed fury. When the light faded, silence fell. Half the Velari fleet was gone. The rest drifted in chaos, their formations shattered, their voices cut off by stunned disbelief. The laughter that had once echoed across the galaxy was gone. On the bridge of the Leviathan, no one spoke for several breaths. The crew simply stared at the devastation. Then, slowly, the comms came alive. Velari ships broadcasting surrender, their voices trembling, their arrogance obliterated. Captain Rowan's face was carved from stone, but his eyes burned with quiet fire. "Let the galaxy laugh no more," he said. "Let them remember this day. Humanity does not run, humanity endures, and when we strike, the stars tremble." Word of the battle spread faster than any fleet could travel. Across the council chambers where once jeers rang, now silence reigned. Leaders who mocked Earth now spoke in whispers. That slow, primitive warship, the relic, the coffin, had in a single strike rewritten the balance of power. The Leviathan returned to orbit, scarred but unbroken. For the first time, humanity stood not as an afterthought, but as a force. No one laughed anymore. The galaxy had learned a truth it would never forget. The relic had roared, and Earth's strike had fallen. The galaxy had always valued speed. The faster the ship, the greater the victory. Sleek lines, swift turns, and weapons that struck like lightning. These were the marks of power. And then came Earth. When humanity unveiled its first warship to the Galactic Council, laughter filled the chambers. The Aegis was vast, hulking, its armored hull thick as mountains. But what drew the most ridicule was its speed, or rather, its lack of it. The ship moved like a wounded whale through the void, crawling where other vessels darted. "Is it broken already?" mocked a Zelvar admiral, his mandibles clicking with amusement. "It's no warship," sneered a Velari senator. "It's a hearse for its own crew." The mockery was merciless. Entire star networks aired holovids of the Aegis crawling out of Earth's orbit, comparing it to ancient barges or drifting coffins. But while the galaxy laughed, Earth remained silent. They had built the Aegis for a reason, and they had gambled everything on it. War came faster than expected. The Velari Empire, bold and arrogant, moved against human colonies along the outer rim. They expected no resistance, just a quick strike to remind Earth of its proper place. Their fleets, famed for speed and precision, descended on humanity's trade routes. For a time, Earth did not respond. Some believed the humans too frightened. Others claimed they were negotiating. The truth was more dangerous. They were waiting, and then the Aegis began its crawl toward the battlefield. On the bridge of the flagship Sunspike, Admiral Draxus of the Velari lounged in his throne, tail flicking lazily. His ships orbited the shattered remains of a human station, its wreckage still glowing from plasma fire. "Where is their warship?" Draxus hissed. "Have they already fled?" "Negative, Admiral," a subordinate replied. "Sensors show it approaches." On the display, the Aegis appeared. Massive, armored, slow. A beast without grace. Draxus's laughter slithered across the comms. "So this is humanity's pride? Pathetic. Break it apart. Show them the cost of defiance." Inside the Aegis, there was no laughter. Captain Helena Vance stood at the center of her bridge, eyes steady, hands clasped behind her back. Her officers moved with grim efficiency, ignoring the tremors of enemy fire hammering against the hull. Plasma bolts struck again and again, but the ship did not falter. "Shields at 60%, reported Lieutenant Rahim. "Hull integrity remains strong." Helena nodded. The Aegis had been designed for this, for patience, for endurance. Every alien ship prized speed. Humanity had abandoned it. Instead, their warship had been built around one weapon, one final strike. A weapon so powerful it could not be fired on the run, so dangerous it required stability, slowness, and time. And time was exactly what they were buying now. For 3 relentless hours, the Velari fleet circled and struck. Fighters swarmed, their lances of plasma carving at the Aegis's armor. Cruisers unleashed volleys that shook the giant's frame. To any other ship, it would have been death. But the Aegis crawled forward, enduring. From the outside, it seemed comical. A lumbering whale, being toyed with by sharks. Alien fleets broadcast the spectacle across the galaxy, filling the stars with mockery once more. They cannot fight back. The coffin drifts closer. How pitiful! But within the armored heart of the Aegis, the hum of energy rose. The Yada weapon was charging, pulling power from reactors and batteries, storing it into a singular device humanity called the Judgment Core. A single strike. One shot. Enough to cripple an empire. At last, the weapons officer looked up, sweat streaking his brow. "Captain, the core is primed." Silence fell across the bridge. The crew knew what it meant. Every human did. The gamble was ready. Either the shot would land, or Earth would burn. Captain Vance's voice cut through the tension, calm and firm. "Target, Sunspike." Admiral Draxus had grown bored of the battle. He stretched lazily, preparing to end the game with a final order, when his sensors screamed with sudden overload. A blinding glow erupted from the belly of the human ship. "What is this?" Draxus roared, surging upright. "What are they?" He never finished. The Aegis unleashed its strike. The Judgment Core fired, not with the elegance of alien lasers or the speed of plasma lances, but with apocalyptic fury. A beam of condensed energy, drawn from Earth's most forbidden science, tore across the void like a god's command. It struck the Sunspike head-on. In a single instant, the Velari flagship disintegrated, hull and crew consumed in blinding light. The shockwave rippled outward, shredding 2 escort cruisers, frying dozens of fighters mid-flight. The void itself seemed to crackle, as if space had been scarred. When the light faded, silence reigned. The Velari fleet, once jeering, now drifted in chaos. Voices filled the comms: panic, disbelief, surrender. No one laughed, no one mocked. Their confidence had evaporated with their admiral's flagship. On the Aegis, the crew stared at the screens in stunned awe. Lieutenant Rahim's voice trembled. It worked." Captain Vance allowed herself a single breath of relief. She straightened, her voice steady once more. "Signal the fleet. Accept their surrender. Humanity does not crawl. We endure. And when we strike, it ends wars." News spread faster than light could travel. Across the galaxy, the mockery that had once filled every channel was replaced with silence, and then with unease. The humans, mocked for their slowness, had shown the galaxy a weapon no species had dared to build, a weapon that did not need speed, only patience. Leaders who had once laughed now spoke in whispers. Admirals studied the Aegis with newfound fear, and among the common folk of distant worlds, a phrase began to spread. Beware the human strike, slow to come, but unstoppable. In the Sol system, as the Aegis returned to Earth, battered but unbroken, crowds filled the skies with celebration. They did not cheer for speed, nor for agility, but for the gamble their ancestors had taken. Humanity had proven something greater. That strength was not always in chasing, but in striking when it mattered most. The galaxy would never laugh again, because the gamble had paid off and the Aegis had won. The galaxy mocked them. When humanity unveiled its first interstellar warship, the Titan's Wrath, laughter echoed across council halls and broadcast networks. Aliens saw a clumsy brute, a ship that moved with the grace of a drifting asteroid. Its engines were sluggish, its turns wide and awkward. Compared to the sharp, predatory silhouettes of alien dreadnoughts, it was an embarrassment. Too slow to fight, too big to dodge, too primitive to matter. Memes and jokes spread across star networks. Alien comedians performed entire routines around the human snail. Admirals sneered, diplomats chuckled, civilians scoffed. To the galaxy, the Titan's Wrath was a coffin in the void. But to humanity, it was a promise. The day of reckoning came sooner than anyone expected. The Dravari swarm, ruthless, insectoid conquerors, sought to make an example of Earth. Their fleets had swept across 3 sectors, crushing resistance with speed and precision. Humanity was next. When the Dravari armada arrived, they expected terror. They expected surrender. They expected humans to scatter like prey. Instead, the Titan's Wrath rose from orbit. From the Dravari flagship Scythe of Eternity, Overlord Krakthik stared at the lumbering giant. His mandibles clicked with amusement. "This is their champion," he hissed. "Yes, Overlord," replied one of his lieutenants. "The humans call it their warship." Krathik's laughter rattled through the chamber. "Warship? It is a drifting corpse. Crush it. Make them watch as their hope burns." The swarm descended. Dravari ships darted like blades, their formations weaving intricate dances around the massive human vessel. Plasma stingers and particle fire lanced into the Titan's Wrath. Shields flared, hull plates groaned. The ship endured hit after hit, seemingly unable to fight back. The galaxy watched, live. Millions tuned in, eager to see the slow coffin torn apart. Commentators jeered, civilians cheered for the Dravari. Even neutral powers mocked the humans for daring to bring such a relic into battle. But inside the Titan's Wrath, no one laughed. On the bridge, Captain Marcus Hale stood unmoving, eyes fixed on the tactical display. His crew worked intense. Silence as the ship absorbed the storm. "Shields at 50%, reported Commander Lin. "Hull integrity stable," added another. Every strike shook the ship, yet Hale remained calm. He knew what the Dravari did not. He knew what the galaxy could not imagine. Beneath the armored skin of the Titan's Wrath rested humanity's greatest gamble, the Erebus Array, a weapon forged in desperation, tested only once in the dark reaches of space, a weapon not meant for skirmishes or duels, but for annihilation. And like all great weapons, it required patience, time, slowness. Humanity had built the ship not to chase the galaxy, but to wait for the moment when all mockery would end in silence. For hours, the battle dragged. The Dravari swarm tore at the Titan's Wrath, circling, laughing, broadcasting their inevitable victory. Overlord Krathik taunted over open channels. "Do you feel it, humans? The shame of your failure? The coffin closes around you. Your last ship dies today. On Earth, billions watched the feed, Fear spread through cities and colonies alike. Families held each other close, children wept, politicians whispered prayers. Humanity's fate hung in the void. And then, deep within the Titan's wrath, a signal chimed. "The Erebus array is charged," Commander Lin reported, voice tight. The bridge fell silent. Every officer looked to Captain Hale. They all knew, one shot, one chance. The gamble of their species. Hale's voice was steady, ironclad. "Target the Scythe of Eternity." Overlord Krathik sneered as he saw the glow building in the belly of the human warship. "They try something. How? Amusing. It will fail." But amusement turned to horror as the glow intensified, brighter than any weapon, brighter than any reactor surge. The laughter on alien networks faltered, commentators choking on words as sensors screamed warnings. And then the Titan's wrath fired. The Erebus array roared. From the ship's core erupted a beam not of light alone, but of reality torn apart. A singular wave of energy rippled through space, bending it, shattering it. The Scythe of Eternity, once the proud flagship of the Dravari, was unmade in an instant, its hull torn to dust, its swarm of escorts caught in the collapse, disintegrating. Like shadows in fire, dozens of ships vanished, fighters crumbled. The proud swarm was reduced to wreckage in the blink of an eye. When the beam faded, silence ruled the stars. On alien networks, commentators were speechless. Civilians who had laughed minutes before stared in stunned disbelief. Admirals of rival. Empires watched their screens with dread. The slow coffin had just erased an armada. On the bridge of the Titan's wrath, the crew sat in breathless silence, faces pale, eyes wide. Then a murmur rippled across them. Relief, awe, terror at their own weapon. Captain Hale's voice broke the silence. "Transmit this message to the Dravari survivors. Tell them, humanity does not chase, humanity does not bow. We strike once, and it is enough." Across the galaxy, the reaction was immediate. In the council chambers where laughter had once reigned, silence now lingered like a storm cloud. Those who had mocked humanity now whispered of danger, of fear, of respect. No one dared speak lightly of Earth again. The comedians stopped their jokes. The memes vanished overnight. In their place spread a new saying, carried from world to world: "Beware the slow wrath of Earth. It does not come quickly, but when it falls, nothing survives." The Titan's wrath returned home, scarred but unbroken, carrying with it not just victory but transformation. Humanity was no longer the backward newcomer, no longer the joke of the stars. They had the last laugh, and the galaxy would never forget it.